Kai aku nui, kai aku rahi, tēnā koutou katoa. Hei timatanga kōrero mōku e tika ana ki te mihi ki tō tātou kaiwhakarite tātanei o Julian. Mō i tukunga whakamoimeti ki te wāhi ngaro, tēnā no ki koe e te tungāne. Tautoko au ngā mihi kua mihi a ki te hunga mate. Kia rātau kua riro i te tirohanga kanohi, o tira, kua tau ki te pai o maumahara. Haere rā pūtau, o tira e moi. Ka anga atu te titiro ki te maungo taupiri, ki te whakamarumarutanga o te kiingitanga, hiri te tonu aku mihi ki taku ariki kingi tū heitia. Ko ngā whakaaro nui me ngā manaakitanga te wāhi ngaro, ki rongi āia, o tira, i rongi te kāhui ariki, pai māriri. I tika ana, kia rere tonu ngā mihi, kia koutou te mana whenua waitaha. Ngai tahu, Ngāti Mamui, tēnā noho ki koutou. Tuia te rangi, e tuake nei, tuia te papa, e takoto nei, tuia tātou katoa, ki te kaupapa tēnei hui, te kaupapa o ako, tēnā tātou katoa. Āhe uri tēnei no Waikato, tū whakaiti au, wiri ana tona kia tū kei mo ia koutou rauranga tira mā. Koutou ngā ringa raupā i roto i ngā kura, i ngā whare wānanga katoa o te motu, nō reira tēnā koutou. It's my privilege to come here today, and I was reflecting that it was 20 years ago I was here in Te Taua Te Reo Māori, 1995, and attended two wānanga reo, one in Taumutu and one in Kaikoura, and want to acknowledge the people here for looking after me in that year and assisting me in my own development of my reo and tikanga. It's lovely to come back in this capacity to share a little pūrākau with you today. So given the title of my kōrero is Apon Pūrākau, I felt like I could take some license to begin with a story by way of introduction. So last Friday, I had a bad day. I was drawn into an email exchange that consumed all the precious time I had between dropping off our 4 kids to kura and picking them up. And just how important that time was brought back to me yesterday when I was at home by myself because my lovely partner had needed to go to work with our 7 children, aged 4, 5, 5, 7, 7, 9, and my niece, trying to prepare my talk. Anyway, it was such a bad day last Friday that I felt compelled to begin writing an article about cultural taxation. More specifically, what cultural taxation feels like. And for those of you who haven't come across the term before, it was first used in 1994, and I know many of you will resonate with this little quote. So to cut a long story short, I had received a notification that I had not been successful in an application for an internal faculty research fund, purportedly aimed to support researchers' development, and I was disappointed. I was disappointed I'd not received it because I'd wanted to investigate the potential of the inaugural Māori Doctor of Education program, which we had begun last year with 12 students, 10 of those students Māori. It increased the number of Māori doctoral students in our own school by 500%, significantly increased the numbers in our faculty, and nearly doubled the number of Māori enrolments in EDD nationally. But more than that, the EDD is a program that calls to align practice and theory and affords the opportunity to engage in what Māori Hōhepa describes as culturally located pedagogy, so that our students are not only prepared to work in their professional communities and in the academy, but in the communities to whom they will serve. But more than disappointed, I was incensed that the notification I'd received only made comments about their financial constraints and queried my budget, and suggesting the savings I could make. There was no feedback about the strength of my research, my potential for development as an emerging researcher. And then I wondered, how many Māori researchers had received this grant in the last 5 years, given the strategic objectives of the faculty and the university included improving Māori education? And I knew full well that in my 3-year term as head of school, no Māori in our school had been a recipient of such an award. So, as one does, I sent an email precisely expressing these views and querying the number of recipients of such awards in our faculty. Thereafter, there was a flurry of activity, including a meeting with my head of school and another email response that included, "Jenny, are you concerned that the process was not equitable?" I've laboured over whether or not I should tell this story to you today because I don't want it to sound like a story of sour grapes or seen as an opportunity to vent my personal frustration or focusing on the negative. But rather, I wanted to use it to reflect on the tenuous nature of the ground we have made in education. Despite the increase in Māori staff from when I looked at the numbers in 2006 from 244 Māori staff in tertiary education to 2013, 4,578. The space is still under fire. The initial non-funding of the Māori-focused Ko Ngā Pai o Te Maramatanga last year is a pointed reminder. And I was reflecting on how cultural taxation makes one feel. It's often a common theme when I talk to Māori in tertiary and in other institutions, whether they be in leadership or positioned at the chalk face. Cultural taxation is exhausting. Cultural taxation is soul-destroying. And it often makes you feel like you want to throw it all in and become a recluse in a nice warm Pacific island somewhere. So knowing full well that many of us have experienced and continue to experience cultural taxation, I come to this hui, Tuia Te Ako, to acknowledge first of all the organisers, Ako Aotearoa, Ngā Hiwi, Rhonda, Koutou Mā, Te Tapu Waiōrehu, for continuing this kaupapa and keeping the space open for us all. And I also want to acknowledge all of those who continue to lead this work and work in this space. Because these are the sorts of hui where we can share research, experiences, wisdom, inspiration, and I want to acknowledge the keynotes this morning, Marama, Sir Tipene and Hannah, for your words of wisdom and hope and inspiration and critique. And these opportunities that enable us to deepen our relationships across institutions so that we can be sustained at an intellectual, spiritual and social level to combat cultural taxation and to be change agents for our students, our whānau, marae, iwi and hapu. Now, I've completely gone from, and this is why I struggled over whether I should tell the story, the title of my presentation, the abstract, which is to talk about pūrākau as research methodology. But in many ways, I've shared a form of pūrākau, and Marama told us many, as did Sir Tipene and Hannah, in their presentations this morning, and pūrākau that are full of pedagogical points that provoke deeper learning and inspire us to learn more. So I want to move to talk about pūrākau very quickly. When I undertook my doctoral study about Ako, I was interested in what Māori teachers do in schools that make a difference. And in the 90s, the educational literature was dominated by the effective teacher and the definitive number of points that made an effective teacher for Māori students. And I knew there was more to it than that. Māori teachers were being de-centred in the discourse, and I wanted to re-centre what they do and how they do it. And I was struggling, as you do methodologically, about how to do this. I didn't want to follow the work that I did in my master's. No offence to you, Graham, as my master supervisor. Great supervision. And do oral history, but actually as I was challenged by my colleagues, Graham, Linda and Leone, how was I going to contribute to kaupapa Māori methodology? And I started looking at pūrākau, and as you know, pūrākau is nothing new. It was new, however, in terms of a research methodology, making the space as a methodological tool. So that's how it came about, and I want to make that clear because it did come out of a particular context looking at ako, and people are using pūrākau in really exciting ways in research today, and I think that's fabulous. The work that I did was in relation to ako and Māori teachers. In the development of pūrākau as methodology, one of the first things, as many others I'm sure have talked about, is the role of decolonising. And I just want to use Merata Meta, Meta's kōrero, to remind us about the way our pūrākau were changed, were made into hybrid, neat, tidy, concise, beginning, ending stories, and really, labelled as myths, legends, fiction and fable. So my work was not only to think about the pūrākau of old and how important they were in teaching and learning, and I did some theorising about that, which I won't go into now, but to think te pū o te rākau, it's no coincidence that pūrākau is the Māori word for storytelling if we think about those words, te pū o te rākau, te pū o te rākau. But pūrākau as methodology was developed to ensure the narratives of our contemporary lives and realities are heard, and to create spaces for us to listen to and engage in and learn from our own stories, told in our own ways. So just very briefly, there are some tenets of pūrākau, so I'm skimming over this very briefly. But there are some tenets, I think, if people were thinking about using pūrākau as research methodology, that guide us to think about what we do and how we do it. I've just tried to do the thing just to remind us that it is all a decolonising process, that it is not just taking something from old and bringing it through as if it's exactly the same, that the reason pūrākau's methodology has emerged was to speak back to and write back to an evidence-based actually discourse that dominates education and continues to dominate education and hide the work or conceal the work that we do as Māori. So there's that piece that sits before this. And then I was looking at what is theorising pūrākau lead us, how to think about what we might do in retelling our stories. So just very quickly, 4 points. One is the portrayal. When I looked at pūrākau, portrayal is all important. It must engage the audience. If a pūrākau is putting someone to sleep, I would probably, it's probably not working. Pūrākau encourages us and promotes us to write in innovative ways that enable emotion, wairua, attention to be written to the text. They can't be flat renditions in the voice of an anonymous storyteller. And I often use Ngā Hoia Te Awe Kōtuku's Ruahine as an example of innovative ways of retelling our pūrākau. Secondly, recreating pūrākau as political. This point really draws attention to the power relations embedded in the pūrākau process as a research method, and being really clear about who's telling the story, who's retelling the story, why and for what purpose. So it engages in those ethical tensions. I think pūrākau promotes transparency. Pūrākau must represent the story that belongs to the storyteller, but I think that pūrākau also enables us and gives us permission to have a version of that story. We were happy with versions. Pūrākau could be told all over the country in different versions, depending on the storyteller, the audience, and the purpose of that pūrākau. There were things, obviously, about the accounts that must remain the same, and different pūrākau had to be absolutely accurate, and others were more open to be embellished. So the researcher adds another branch to the pūrākau and a space to be unique. The third point, retelling the pūrākau as provocation. And this really hits home to pūrākau's pedagogy. If a pūrākau does not provoke, if it is just merely entertaining, then I would guess that it's not, in my mind, a pūrākau as such. Pūrākau should provoke and rouse interest, they should inspire, they should encourage questions. Not only encouraging an intellectual response, but perhaps provoking an emotional, spiritual, physical reaction. People often cry, laugh, pai ana tērā te pūrākau. In the end, pūrākau must be thought-provoking, even if you didn't get it. Even if you go away from this morning and go, I don't know why she told that story about cultural taxation, it was really annoying. You know, maybe 2 weeks later you'll think about, what was cultural taxation? What was the point of that? Where does it connect with me? Because for some people it won't. And some people it might connect a lot longer. And I was interested in Hannah's kōrero today when we were talking about young people and the need to have everything immediately. They don't want to hear the story often. They want the quick answer. So when I sit down and my kids ask me a question and I go into a story, they're like, oh, get to the point. And it's a real craft and it's a real art and it's something we have to teach, learn, reteach and relearn. And the last is restoring pūrākau as powerful, reminding us not to waste our words. And people have said that already this morning. Kau e paupau noiho, mau mai taima, me. You know, words are powerful. In the old days, kāre he, kau e tuhi tō, kau e hainatanga tō ingoa, ko tō kupu. Ko huri te ao, nā nei, hoi anō kia u tonu tātou ki tērā. Ko te kupu. Okay. Oh, wrong way. So I'm going to finish. Joanne Archibald, who is well known in Indigenous storytelling world from the Stolo Nation UBC, has encouraged Indigenous storytelling all over the world and was particularly been a mentor for me in this sort of work. And I just want to quote it here: the issues and the way that we want to deal with the issues, the types of conversations and talk must be given space for us to fill. This does not mean that non-Native people should be forever excluded from those conversations. I'm suggesting that we First Nations need some space to talk, to share our stories in our own way, to create our culturally based discourse, develop our ways to validate our discourse, then open the conversations up to others to join. I'm suggesting that pūrākau is one of those ways. It's very difficult in a evidence-based research environment to continue to promote pūrākau as a valid not only research but teaching and learning tool. But I think it's important for us to really engage in pūrākau in deep and meaningful ways together and collectively. Okay. So to conclude, pūrākau's methodology aspires to reclaim the taonga tuku iho, to draw on the knowledge, wisdom and experiences of our tūpuna. The challenge is to articulate these traditions in new and creative forms so that they can respond to our current contexts, issues and problems. Such an approach must also include analysis that pays attention to the ways colonisation has and continues to impact not only our narratives and research, but our lives. Pūrākau's methodology is a kaupapa Māori example of knowledge creation and production outside the control of dominant, powerful discourse that determine what is evidence and what is valid research. At the end of the day, pūrākau is a different sort of narrative, an Indigenous narrative based on our own knowing for the cultural and social sustainability and regeneration of our people. Pūrākau's methodology sources new research and old ways of teaching, learning and knowing. Pūrākau, as we have heard through the presentations today, are not only stories of the past, but stories that must be told and lived. Pūrākau as Ako hopes to support the kaupapa, Te Whakaraurua, revitalisation through reflection, repositioning and reimagining. Mā Māori, mō Māori, e ai ki a Māori, kia whakaraurua ai te iwi. Kia ora.